No one ever thought the perfect Plath family would crumble like this. And for years, they sold the image of pure country harmony, smiling kids, faith-filled songs, and strict Christian values. But this season, everything changed. The truth didn't just slip out, it exploded on camera. Behind those golden fields and Sunday smiles were hidden tears, silent rivalries, and unspoken control. Fans watched in disbelief as the family that once preached unity started falling apart, piece by piece. The question everyone's asking now: how did America's holiest family become its most broken one? Hey everyone, I'm Hamna, and you're watching TLC's Sister Wives Exposed Hub, where we uncover the truth behind reality TV's biggest illusions. If you're new here, make sure to subscribe, like, and drop your thoughts below, because what's coming next will leave you speechless. Stay tuned, we're pulling back the curtain on the Plath's perfect lie. When Welcome to Plathville first aired, the world fell in love with the dream. The Plaths were painted as the picture of purity and perfection. A close-knit homeschooling family, singing gospel songs under the Georgia sun, living by their faith and strict moral code. No phones, no dating, no worldly distractions, just God, family, and discipline. To millions, it looked like heaven on earth. But Season 7 tore that illusion apart. The cracks began quietly, awkward silences at dinner, tired eyes, and smiles that didn't reach their hearts. Cameras caught whispered arguments, shifting loyalties, and moments of raw exhaustion that no perfect edit could hide. What started as a wholesome family story began to unravel before everyone's eyes. For longtime fans, this wasn't a random slip. It was the mask finally breaking. The image that once fooled everyone was never real. And as the truth came out, viewers realized this wasn't just drama. It was a system collapsing from the inside. At the heart of the Plath family's chaos stands Kim, the woman who built the rules, the image, and the silence that held it all together. For years, she preached discipline, purity, and obedience. But when the cameras lingered a little longer, the truth began to surface. Her rules didn't apply equally to everyone. Viewers saw Kim tighten her grip on her daughters, especially Lydia. Every choice Lydia made had to fit Kim's vision of perfection. Her clothes, her friendships, even her thoughts were monitored. But when her sons, like Micah and Ethan, acted out or pushed limits, Kim turned soft. She laughed off their recklessness, excused their behavior as boys being boys, and defended them even when their actions crossed lines. Remember that moment when Micah's wild choices were brushed aside, while Lydia was pressured to act like the family's moral anchor? It wasn't just parenting. It was a system that rewarded rebellion in men and silence in women. That double standard didn't just create conflict. It taught the boys entitlement, and it taught the girls to shrink themselves to stay loved. Kim's control wasn't pure authority. It was fear. Fear of losing her power, her image, and the narrative she'd built for years. But as the children began questioning her, that fear turned into the very thing she claimed to protect them from: chaos. And in Season 7, the control that once defined the Plaths became the reason they started to fall apart. Ethan Plath once looked like the golden boy of the family. Calm, polite, the perfect son molded by Kim's strict standards. But as the seasons unfolded, that image began to crumble. The more he fought for independence, the more he sounded like the very people he was trying to escape. Viewers watched his marriage to Olivia strain under the weight of emotional walls he didn't even know he had. Every argument between them carried echoes of the Plath household: judgment, control, silence. When Olivia tried to express herself, Ethan's tone hardened. He used the same cold, dismissive words Kim once used against him. It wasn't cruelty. It was habit, the only language of power he'd ever learned. In those tense scenes, you could feel it, the cycle repeating itself. Ethan, raised in a world where obedience was mistaken for love, didn't know how to exist without control. Even miles away from his family, the rules still lived inside him. That's the cruel truth of a controlling home. You don't just leave the house. You carry it in your head, And while Ethan tries to break free, his story shows how hard it is to unlearn the very patterns that shaped you. Lydia's engagement in Season 7 felt like a moment of joy, but also a moment of quiet heartbreak. It happened so fast that even longtime viewers were stunned. One episode she was talking about waiting on God's plan, and the next she was announcing her engagement with that same calm, obedient smile she's always worn. The family's reaction said it all. Kim's face lit up with pride, not surprise. It was as if this had been written long before Lydia ever said yes. Lydia called it God's timing, but it looked more like family timing, a decision wrapped in faith but fueled by pressure. The boys, like Micah and Ethan, were allowed to explore, mess up, and take their time. Lydia, though, was celebrated only when she stayed in line. Her worth was tied to how closely she followed the path laid out for her. Behind her soft voice and steady smile, there was something heavier. A girl who learned that obedience is safer than honesty. Her engagement wasn't rebellion or romance. It was surrender dressed as happiness. Season 7 gave viewers one of the most uncomfortable contrasts in the Plath story. The boys, especially Micah and Isaac, were caught on camera doing dangerous, reckless things. The fire scene still lingers in fans' minds, where laughter echoed while flames burned just a little too close for comfort. Instead of concern, there was celebration. Kim brushed it off as boys being boys, smiling like chaos was a sign of strength. But when the daughters made harmless choices, a new outfit, a friendship outside the circle, or even a hint of independence, it turned into a moral lecture. Lydia was told to pray more. Mariah was labeled rebellious. The rules changed depending on gender, and everyone could see it. That double standard wasn't just unfair. It was emotional training. The boys learned they could break rules and still be loved. The girls learned that love must be earned through silence and submission. Over time, that imbalance didn't just break relationships. It built resentment. The Plaths called it discipline. But it looked more like control disguised as faith. And by Season 7, that illusion was impossible to ignore. Veronica used to be the calm voice of reason, the one who gently questioned Kim's choices when others stayed quiet. But by Season 7, something had changed. Her tone softened. Her words began to echo Kim's, and the once subtle resistance turned into quiet agreement. Viewers noticed how she started defending Kim's strict rules, even when those rules were hurting the kids. It wasn't malice, it was survival. In group scenes, you could see it in her body language. When Kim spoke, Veronica nodded along. When others pushed back, she looked away. The woman who once offered balance became part of the system she used to question. And in her confessionals, her explanations sounded rehearsed, almost borrowed. That's what control does. It doesn't always silence you with fear. Sometimes it convinces you that silence is safer than truth. Veronica's complicity showed how even good people can become trapped inside toxic patterns when honesty threatens their place in the family. By the time she realized what she had become part of, the damage was already done, not just to her, but to everyone who trusted her to speak up. Amid all the noise, control, and emotional exhaustion, one person quietly stood out: Amber, the youngest Plath. She didn't rebel loudly, didn't argue on camera, but you could see it in her eyes, the quiet awareness that something about this perfect world didn't feel right. In small moments, a hesitant glance, a question that lingered too long, a pause before repeating her mother's words. Amber revealed something powerful: awareness. She was watching, learning, and starting to think for herself. In a family where obedience was everything, even that was an act of rebellion. Her quiet defiance didn't come with drama or anger. It came with clarity, a child beginning to see the cracks that others had learned to ignore. And maybe, just maybe, that's where change begins, because every cycle, no matter how toxic, eventually meets someone brave enough to ask why. Amber might still be young, but her silence doesn't look like fear. It looks like observation. And in a family built on control, sometimes the one who watches is the one who will finally break the pattern. Watching the Plath family this season didn't just feel like reality TV, it felt like watching people confuse control for care, silence for peace, and fear for love. It's heartbreaking, because you can see that somewhere beneath the judgment and manipulation, there's still a longing to be understood. As I watched Kim tighten her grip, Ethan repeat her patterns, Lydia smile through pressure, and Veronica choose silence, I couldn't stop thinking. How many families look perfect from the outside while quietly falling apart inside? I'm Hamna, and this is TLC's Sister Wives Exposed Hub. If this story hit you the way it hit me, tell me in the comments. Who do you think will be the first to truly break free from this legacy of control? Sometimes truth doesn't come with a big explosion. Sometimes it begins with one quiet voice refusing to repeat the same story. And maybe, for the Plaths, that voice is finally beginning to rise.